Good morning, CLC. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your presence. Now, in this moment, at this time, I invite you to welcome in the presence of Spirit. Allow that great wave to just wash over you. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take a nice deep cleansing breath in. And as you release the breath, release all that no longer serves you. Let go of any doubts or stress or tension. Any thoughts of the past or future, just let it wash away. And if you feel so inclined, go ahead and take another nice deep cleansing breath in. And as you release this breath, allow your body to just relax in this moment. And allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal spirit inspires me. Universal wisdom enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words. I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one very special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness of peace and fulfillment and gratefully speak these words. I accept. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This could be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in this room or even on this planet anymore. I turn to that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in this room or virtually on this broadcast and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
Nice to see all of you. And you know what was fun, too, is when they started to sing, you were still milling around in the middle of the room. And some of the old-timers will remember that. Back in the day when we used to have big crowds here, you know, the musicians would be standing up here tapping their feet. It's like, come on already. So, that was great. In that song, the placement of the words to give, then receive. And I sat there thinking about this. You know, if you receive first, you may or may not give. But if you give first, you absolutely will receive. That's why we put those things in that dynamic metaphysical order of action has an equal and opposite reaction. There's a proactive stance that we take. We do something in mind and see what follows after that. So I have a lot to unpack for you today. This is going to be a 2.5 hour long talk. We'll take a break in the middle for refreshments, but now what I have for you today and through the rest of this week is referenced in a document you have in your lap inside your Sunday program. There is something called the Inner Healing Experience. If it looks familiar, it's because you heard Danielle recite it. We've been reciting this for about as long as the Govains have been part of creative life. I mean, a really long time, possibly longer. And let me tell you why. I'm going to set all this up today so we don't have to do this in the weeks to come, give you the backstory and the history and all the rest of that, and we can get down to the actual text of the thing and see what meaning it has for us. When creative life started, a long, long time ago, so long, in fact, that we'll celebrate 40 years as a center this fall. Yeah, how about that? Yeah. So get your party hats out, and we're gonna do some kind of thing here around October. You know, a week of festivities and whatnot. But for 2.5, 3 years before that, we were a study group. In those days, if you had 50, thank you. If you had 50. See, you walked off with this, and I was telling Danielle, this is. She walked off with it. Yeah, you see. That's what happens when you have multiple speakers in an event. You put your notes up there, and the person ahead of you walks off and sits down with them at the back of the room, and you're like, uh-oh. So this is the inner healing where I can read it. It's big enough. So we were a study group, and you had to get 50 people together, and they had to be real people. You couldn't use pets and stuff. They had to sign to become a center. And then you got what was called a charter, and we have an actual framed charter, and at that point, they didn't have teaching chapters and things like that. You were either a study group or a church. It was one or the other, okay? So when we were a study group, we met in a private home. Eventually, then we moved to a motel down on Greens Road and I-45, and we rented a room there for a couple of years. And that's when we started having Sunday services. But at the private home, the very first feature that we had was a lending library. And the lending library was made up of cassette tape albums. You remember those? Why do people laugh when I say cassettes? I don't know. Some even snort, you know. This isn't that long ago, okay? Anyway, somebody, I don't remember who, donated us a bunch of these big 12 and 16 cassette albums by a man named Dr. Jack Boland. Dr. Jack Boland. Now, if you don't know who Jack Boland is, I'm not terribly surprised because he's been gone for some years now. But this guy was a legend. He was a giant in New Thought. He was a unity minister in the Detroit suburb of Warren, a church called Unity in Warren, which I think is now Renaissance Unity. And we have a person watching from Detroit who can tell us. But that's the church where later Mary Ann Williamson served as senior minister with Sandy Scott, who I knew real well back in the day, as her assistant. So that's that center, big center. But Jack was in recovery. Jack was a recovering alcoholic and let everybody know this. He not only let everybody know this, he jerked you up out of your chair if you were. He would speak at conventions and conferences to a room full of people, and he would say, would all the friends of Bill W. in the room please stand up? Now, you got to understand, this was the 80s, and it was still seen as shameful, and I'm sure it is still in some quarters, but it was seen as a major flaw that you had to hide, that you were doing this recovery work. And here he'd have you stand up, and you were like called to account. But he gave you approval for it, and he gave you love for it. And he'd say stuff like, you see these people standing? Well, these are the people that, they're willing to do the work. They're doing spiritual psychology work in recovery. And not just alcoholics, but drug addicts and gamblers and anyone who was involved in a 12-step program. He was real big on this as a spiritual practice. He believed that the 12 steps were a template for spiritual practice, whether or not you had an active addiction going on. He also believed that everybody has an active addiction going on to one thing or another. If you're not addicted to drugs or alcohol or gambling or what have you, you're addicted to your own ego. That was the idea here. You're addicted to the ratchet that goes on about what do people think of me, and where's my place in society, and how do I fit, and how do I get what I need and not lose what I have, and that constant processing and so forth. And so he said, I want to do something to update this and position it, the 12-step model, position it for a new culture, a new time starting in the 80s, and this was the Mastermind process. He created something called the Mastermind process. Have you heard of this? Mastermind groups. Have you ever heard of anyone saying, I'm in a mastermind group? What in the world is a mastermind group? Well, it was about goal setting and achieving. It was about what do you want to create in your life and what stands in the way of it. In fact, it sounds a lot like visioning. There's a lot of crossover there because you ask the question, there's a hard question in visioning like, what is in the way of this? What have I put in the way of this? What am I willing to release that may be in the way of this? That's not a cheerful, joyful question like, how much good can I enjoy in my life? It's harder work. It's a more challenging work. Every addict, every recovering person, of which I am one, thinks, I say, because, well, one thing every recovering person does is assume they know what every other recovering person does, so bear that in mind. But just to move things along. Every recovering person thinks that all I have to do is put the cork in the bottle and I'm good. I've had this problem. Now I'm not going to use anymore, and so I'm not going to have the problem. And we can put all that behind us and forget about it. But that's not how it works. And every recovering person who works the 12 steps finds out that there's stuff like searching and fearless moral inventory that goes into it. Ouch. I didn't see that coming. There's making a list of people to make amends to. Okay, I've got my list. I'm done here. No, you're not. Now you go make amends to them. Now you go find them, you know. So there are all these action steps to it that are like, what does this have to do? Look, I swear I won't drink or use or play the ponies if you just let me not have to go talk to the people who are part of the wreckage of my past. I will do anything if I don't have to face them. But they're who live in your head. And you live in theirs probably, but the AA Big Book talks about even if they don't know what you did or don't remember you at all, this is for you. And if they make you wrong and shame you further, it says we do not crawl. We say what we have to say and we move on. Well, a form of this, a form of that 12-step model that's not as intense, doesn't involve sponsors, doesn't involve special meetings unless you join a mastermind group and get together with them, but is very usable by anyone anywhere, is this mastermind process that you have a copy of there. And those of you, by the way, watching online have it as well. Look on the Facebook page, and it'll be on Instagram, and there's a link in the chat, and there'll be a link in the YouTube video of this. So how does it all start out? Well, you can see for yourself if you read it. Starts out with acknowledgement. What are we acknowledging, first of all? That there is a sensitive and responsive power. There is a sensitive and responsive power to acknowledge the presence of G-O-D as a living thing in your life, as an energy, as a presence that's everywhere, and not, as David Lemaster beautifully puts it, not a discrete entity, D-I-S-C-R-E-T-E, meaning not a distinct standalone thing that sits yonder in the sky doing godly type things, looking at you and deciding something about you. No, it's not that at all. It's not a big personality. We'd understand it better if it were. If God were a great big ego, we'd say, yeah, I can get that. I can wrap my mind around that. That's just me amplified to cosmic proportions. But it's not like that, and we can't wrap our minds around it because it's infinite energy. All we can do is submit to it. All we can do is acknowledge that it's there, that there's a power that's greater than we are. And it's not another human. It's not a committee. It's not a government. It's not a force. It's not even really a power. It's an essence. It's an essence. And it's all there is. And I'm not all there is. And on my best day, I'm not all there is. And no matter what my ego says, I'm not all there is. I'm not even a lot of what there is. I'm not even a molehill of what there is. You get it down to that, okay? But there is something and so all I can do is take my hat off to it. All I can do is say, thank you. Like we often sing and say here, thank you. Thank you for this beautiful day. What am I thanking? I have no idea. I don't know what I'm thanking because I can't wrap my head around that because it's infinite. So I'm thanking some power that's greater than I am. So how do I know there is such a power at all? Because it's sensitive and responsive. How do I know it's sensitive and responsive? I start interacting with it consciously and deliberately. I start acting like there is such a power. It's kind of like gravity in a way. The best way to understand the relationship that you and gravity have is drop something. I thought about, honestly, for a moment, just a moment, dropping this microphone. But if I did, our music director, who was across town, relaxing at home, watching on, okay, he would cross the miles in 3 steps. and probably dive down here and catch it before it hit the floor, you know. No, but you see what I mean. To understand gravity, drop something. To understand any law, interact with it. Assume that it's so. And see what happens. Assume that there's a responsive, sensitive power. And by sensitive, we don't mean thin-skinned. See, often we've thought of God, when it was a discrete character to us, as being so sensitive, so particular, so that we had to go to, if we didn't thank it, it would have its little feelings hurt. And it would hang its head, and then it would get mad, see? And then, oh, you don't know. And then it would smite us. So there was this constant, you know, there's a sidebar to recovery work called codependency work. They go hand in hand. We have had a codependent relationship with the higher power for like ever in the Western world. A codependent relationship with Jesus Christ forever in the Western world. We say, oh, somebody's going to relieve me of my sins. I get the easy way out. Somebody's going to take the bullet for me. Somebody's going to face the music for me. Somebody, by their suffering, by their trials, has erased my karma. Well, that's just like saying, well, all I have to do is move on and try not to mess up again without cleaning up the mess I created the first time. It's irresponsible, and it's codependent, and it's childish. And by childish, I don't mean childlike. Childlike is a wonderful, beautiful thing, right? You know, to become as a little child is to enter the kingdom of heaven and so on. What that means is be innocent, vulnerable, and trusting. Childish means selfish and petulant, and it's an insult to children because most children aren't like that, but it's the best we come up with, right? It's just a term we throw around. But you see what I'm saying here is that we've had a codependent relationship with this power. We've thought, you know, we have to, there's a great word called propitiate. We have to propitiate the thing. We have to cut deals with it. And so, no. Leave all that aside. All you have to do is acknowledge it. And then surrender to it, which is not as hard as it sounds. Because already there's so much that we trust. There's so much that we've surrendered to. When I go to sleep at night, I trust I'm going to keep breathing. I trust my food is going to digest, my blood is going to circulate, and whatever my body needs to do, it's going to do it, and I don't have to stay up and watch it. Or I'd be haggard, you know, after a night or two of that. Plus, I'd interfere with the system, and they tell you if you don't get a good night's sleep, it increases your stress level, it lowers cortisol and these other things that are good for you and, you know, inspiring for you in your brain. Well, so I trust that. I trust there's enough air in this room to breathe. I trust my car is still sitting in the parking lot. My house is still standing. And we trust that our friends are still our friends. I remember Buddy Mondlock, the wonderful singer we've had here before, has that great song about friends. Will my friends all forget me? I think not. He said, I think not. No, our friends are our relationships. All of this stuff is stuff that we trust. So why not trust that there's something organic that's holding it all together, that is sensitive, but not picky and not thin-skinned, and responsive, eerily responsive in how it plays back to us the content of our consciousness in form, in some way. Here's an example, something you can try, very simple. Think about a certain thing. They always use elephants for this. I don't know why, but think of elephants. Or think of something. The Eiffel Tower. I don't know anything at all. Get an icon, an image, an animal totem, something in mind, and start thinking about it and writing about it and talking about it and singing about it, and the thing will start showing up everywhere. It will show up not just through your algorithms, because that's a fairly new thing, but it's a metaphor. You know how that works. If you ask Alexa for something, then it's on all your screens, and right? I did that. I was looking at hats. I don't know why. It was nice. Jeffrey wears pork pie hats, and I was looking at a nice snap brim fedora. I thought that'd be wonderful to have. Now, every hat company on earth has me on their list. And they say, we got us a live one. down there in Texas. Not a nickel on hats has been spent by me, but that doesn't keep them from trying. Well, that's a metaphor for what Spirit's been doing all along, long before we had the technology for this kind of thing. Things like that start to show up. Ernest Holmes, 1,000,000 years ago, said that Spirit responds by corresponding. It doesn't respond by offending or being offended by or changing the subject or being irrelevant. No, it responds by corresponding, co-responding to the thing that we have determined, that we have asked for in our lives. That's what we trust, that right there. So there is a power greater than I am, greater than you are, that is sensitive and responsive. I can trust that. Next week is about the responsibility that I have in interacting with that power. Today is just about being aware that there is such a power, acknowledging it, and then surrendering to it. Surrendering to it. Now, that's a little bit problematic, so let me spend a couple of minutes on that. Surrender is not a word that falls easily on our ears. It's not a word you like, any more than discipline, right? What we need is more discipline or structure. Everybody gets all creeped out by it. But what it means to surrender, it means there's stuff I've been focusing on that I've not had my eye on the ball, or I've had my eye on the wrong ball. I'm playing tennis, and over here they're doing something else, and I'm watching them, and the tennis balls are whizzing by me, and I'm not returning serve because I'm distracted, because we get distracted by things. I can surrender certain things out of my consciousness. It doesn't mean what you think it means. It doesn't mean the first thing that comes to us about surrender, which is like, first of all, give up everything you enjoy. I think I've told you this story before, but it's an example of how we get stuff twisted up and backward. My birthday is in December, early December, okay? And so some of you know, I know this is the cement mixer story for those of you that keep record of these stories, okay? And this is the 17th time in 40 years that he's told the cement mixer. So when I was like 4, I was given this really cool cement mixer truck that had these round colored balls in the clear cement part of it, right? And as you rolled the thing, the wheels turned, and it turned the gear that turned the little mixing thing and these balls. And at 4 years old, you're fascinated by this kind of thing. And you want to roll it over every surface and all like that. For Christmas, which is 3 weeks after my birthday, some relatives came to town, and one of them was a particularly religious person. And he said, time is coming, Lent. Maybe it was later than that. Yeah, no, it must have been Lent. So I'd had the thing for like 3 months when the religious family came to town. And I got scammed out of that cement mixer because it was Lent. And they said, somebody deserves that more than you. And so, give me that. And that's how I took it at the time. Actually, I gave in. I had a codependent relationship with grown-ups at that time, with figures of authority. It's like, sure, here, take my truck. Just don't not like me, But it imprinted on me for a little while, like it has on all of us, that this is how the nature of surrender to Spirit works. Is you enjoying that? You like that? You having a good time? Give it to me. Stop that. Put that down. You're getting carried away. You kids are making too much noise, that kind of stuff. But that's not the surrender that we're called to make. The surrender is of the nonsense. The surrender is of the dig a hole and fill it in, and the pointless repetition of things. And if I may come back to the 12-step model for a moment, it's a surrender of the idea that maybe this time, if I do what has never worked before ever in the history of the world, maybe this time it will. So here I go. Well, that's not functional and that's not useful, and so that's what we give up. It really can be as simple as all that. Through the week, with our ministers and practitioners, sometimes all of them, sometimes some of them. Messages are exchanged. There's constant communication going on. Text messaging is the easiest, but other forms too. Often when you'll see me, I feel guilty sometimes on Sunday when I'm sitting here during the music and I'm looking at my phone and I hope people don't think I'm looking at the football scores, because I almost never do that. I mean, never do that. But creative life people are sending messages, and then sometimes it's, stuff going on in the room, we're out of coffee or I don't know, whatever. But there are all of these communications going on through the week amongst the people that are the healing team, really, of this center. And if you could read these messages, it'd be like, so-and-so requests prayer for such and such. No advice is given. You don't hear the other party saying, well, you know what they need to do about that is blah, 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 blah. Say, no, we're going to turn it over. I'm taking it into prayer right now. I don't know what so-and-so needs, but there is a power that does know. I don't know what's going to happen, but something is going to happen. Ernest Holmes used to say this, words to this effect. He didn't, as you know, maybe, treat out loud in private counseling sessions, only on stage. And so you went to see him, and he'd talk with you and stuff, and he'd say, all right, let's take it to spirit. And he'd get quiet, and he'd go within, and you'd wonder, is he, hello, are you asleep, or what are you doing? And after a while, he'd come out, and he'd done his work, and he had an amazing capacity for keeping his eye on the ball, keeping his attention focused on what he was doing. And if you ever asked him, what should I do about this situation? Unless it was slam dunk, like, should I order the ham and cheese or the tuna fish salad? He'd give you an opinion. But in any real situation, when you asked him what you should do, he'd say, I don't know, but there is something that does know. And let's go talk to that. And so this is what we do. And so it's an exercise. And so whenever any of you guys have a prayer request, which you very often do, and those of you at a distance, and it comes in, I don't want you to think that we convene a committee and sit down and decide what you ought to do about things. We turn it over. And I've learned to turn stuff over in my own life. But there's still this little part of me that wants to micromanage my own experience, not yours, mine. Still a part of me, well, really? How long is this going to last? Really? Let's pick it apart. Let's open it. When I was a little kid, back about the time my cement mixer was being confiscated, I mean given away, they gave me a phonograph that folded up into a little case with a little handle on it. Okay? And I loved it, and I played records on it. And then one day I took it apart. Now, I was not a handy kid. I was not one of those kids who's like a budding engineering genius. I took it apart, and that's all I did with it. And then it didn't work, and then it was in pieces, And I remember that from time to time when handed a situation, handed an opportunity, handed some good in life, I have a tendency, if I'm not careful, to take it apart, unscrew all the screws, and lose some of them. They roll away, and now it's like, oh, this was a perfectly useful, functional thing here, and now it isn't because of my involvement with it at that level. So I'm learning to trust. It's all going to work out. And this is not irresponsible. This is counter-programming to the stuff we got as kids. This is not irresponsible. It's actually more irresponsible to go the other direction and say, nothing in this life works unless I personally am involved in it and manage it and carry, bring my toolkit to it. No, that's the thing that's, because there is a power and it's worthy of our adoration. It's worthy of even, dare I say, our worship, which does not mean I'm not worthy. It means it is worthy. It is worthy as this presence that it is. All of these things are worthwhile engagements with it, especially to know that it walks with us, as us, every step of the way. So what I invite you to do, starting as soon as you feel like doing it, is if you need a structure for your daily spiritual practice, this is a great one, I feel, this inner healing experience. It has, as I say, a wonderful correlation with the 12 steps, with the Oxford group model that preceded the 12 steps. The 12 steps came out of. It's also got some interesting things that I don't know Jack intended. The four-part entry of it. What is it? When he's talking about this power, and he says it is. Hang on just a minute. You're gonna like this. It enfolds, it inspires, it enlightens, and it encircles. There's a lot of other things too, but those are great. Enfolds, inspires, enlightens, and encircles me. It's almost like, points of the compass. It's almost like the fourfold invocation that you're going to hear if you stick around for the Imbolc ritual circle that Reverend Lisa is going to lead after this service, where you harness the energies of the 4 points. Did Jack intend that? I don't know. With a wink and a twinkle in his eye, I can kind of see that he did. He's pulling from different traditions here. But I invite you, if you sit down and you say, now what was it they were talking about at Creative Life, and how am I going to work this into my spiritual program? Take this thing home with you and try it, okay? When you come back next week, we'll pick up on the part of personal responsibility. I know that may not fill the room, but, we got past surrender. We threw in a little discipline. It didn't sway us, So next week we can come back and we can pick up on personal responsibility and say, yeah, I can do that. So join with me now in knowing. I'm going to speak out loud, as Ernest did from the platform. And so as a teaching thing, too, this method of prayer called spiritual mind treatment, join me in knowing that there is one life, one power, one presence, one spirit, one mind, one heart, one absolutely everything. And that one fashioned me from within itself, fashioned this word that I speak about everyone who hears this word, as I affirm and know for each one of us, taking up our divine inheritance as the spiritual co-creators that we are. This is not jargon. This is absolutely how it is. We are co-creating. We are collaborating. We are working shoulder to shoulder with the power that made planets, peopled this one anyway, with living things. The one that decided to have seasons and nature, and beauty and wonder and love. And it needs me, and it needs every one of us to be fully who we are for the purpose of furthering love in its creation. I now know that whatever is necessary for us to take up that divine inheritance, to take up that high and holy work, and do well at it, is provided. And we know it, we feel it, we sense it around us, and we point it out in the lives of each other. We see the strengths that each of us possess, and we celebrate these. There's no competition. There's just collaboration, community building, great work being done, pyramids rising to the sun, metaphorically in consciousness, as all of us, hand in hand, arm in arm, move forward together. Anything not integral to this process, anything that might jam up the works at all, is now easily and gently released, leaving in its place a clear and confident knowing, I am that I am, and all is well. For this knowing and this manifestation in form everywhere we turn, I am so deeply grateful. I release it now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
loud pop. Mel and I both moved at the same time, so we tried, but we're electric, right? Okay. I think this is the last week of me doing announcements. I believe David will be back next week, which is good because he has a class starting the week after. So there's okay, today is really, really, really busy. There's a lot going on. Starting with the fact that it's the first Sunday and we do community hour, which is when we hang out and have snacks. Yesterday was Groundhog Day. Does anybody know if the groundhog saw their shadow or not? Oh, is it today? Oh, today is Groundhog Day. Oh, does anybody? So is that 6 more weeks of winter? Oh, okay. Oh, come on. We live in South Texas. What? What? And I have just lost control of the room, right? Okay. So it's Groundhog Day. It's also Imbolc, which is in the Celtic tradition. It's midpoint between the winter equinox and the spring equinox. You notice that the days are getting longer? Okay? This is the time when you get your seeds out, look at your seeds, and decide what you're going to plant. I have one last announcement before I get to giving time, and this is why I'm grateful David's not here, because that means I get to do it. We have a new minister joining our staff. Go ahead, come on. Come on. Now, I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself, but what I'm going to let you know is she is from California. She is staying in California. She is going to be one of our online teachers, and she'll tell you all about what she's interested in, so
Oh, great. Well, thank you, first of all, for welcoming me in person. I am always here, but it is usually virtually. And I stand representing several other virtual ministry practitioners. We have an entire team. So the idea is the roots, or maybe even better, as David Lemaster, our practitioner, says, the mycelium of creative life stretches beyond the zip codes. So you can go and be anywhere and participate in the community that is creative life. And that has called to me from the beginning. The ministerial path is a long one. It's been about 9 years for me. And right from the start, I knew I was called virtually because I love that bigger reach to be able to take all of you and then include the rest of the world. So I could not be more thrilled to formally join Creative Life and be an integral part of the family here. Teaching is what it's all about for me. The history of science of mind, the history of New Thought. I had the opportunity to study with some pretty amazing teachers one of whom left the planet recently. So I just feel really inspired and ready. I'm ready to go. So thank you for welcoming me. Thank you, Dr. Jesse.
So, and I get to say it out loud. This is Reverend Dana.
That's the first.
Right?
Yeah, first time.
I mean, it took me a while to say it. So,
Yeah.
all right, now, to keep all of this going, this is when we get to do the hey, we're accepting your gifts. Yes. It's the favorite part, right?
Absolutely.
The favorite gifts. So I'm keeping her up here because she knows a slightly different version. So when I screw it up, she screws it up. Y'all know. What we invite you to do, Mark's back there with the basket, but there are a number of different ways, including we have a PayPal, we have a QR code, we have, you can go over to the bookstore and sign up in the bookstore, and he'll run it Jesse will run it once a month. So I invite you to either take your physical gift or your metaphorical gift in hand and join us in saying, Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is. All right. We have one more visitor. Okay. So In the organization it's called New Thought Men's Movement Community. New Thought Men's Community, and we have the founding, I guess the founder and the head of that, and this is Reverend Eamon Duffy. So we're going to give him a chance to tell you, just say hi. Don't come on. We're going to give him a chance to say hello, and then I am going to turn it over, and they've already thrown hands on who's going to do what, but they are going to do the close together. Watch how we in community share responsibilities.
Oh, well, thank you. It's an honor to be here, and just being down here with my family in Spring, and so getting to be with my spiritual family here in Spring. So it's just lovely to be here. The New Thought Men's Community is a community designed for New Thought men, for this healthy, uplifted, nurturing consciousness that we hold not only for ourselves as individuals, that we hold for our society, but that we hold for the world. This is the future of masculinity, and that's what we attempt to uplift and nurture and plant seeds for, is the very best in us as men to show up in this world in support of equality, in support of love, in support of all of our tenets that we truly believe in this science of mind and New Thought philosophy. So it's my honor. We're online at newthoughtmens.community if you want to check us out. And as always, it's wonderful to be here in this community. So we'll go ahead and share our prayer together here, the closing prayer. So just take a breath with me and turn within as we know that we are a part of this infinite, vast expression of the cosmos, the existence of all existence, that we are a part of that. We are that drop of water in that ocean of the cosmos, that we are that fullness and perfection and joy and love in our own small droplet of that water. But yet we are a part of that vast ocean. And so as we anchor in this, for that is where the healing comes in, we anchor in this deep knowing that we are whole and perfect and beautiful, loved, that we are this divine expression of the life that moves in, through, and as all things. With such gratitude, with such appreciation for this love, for this joy, for the celebration of life that we get to be, to choose to be. For this, I now pass my word to Dana.
And I absolutely know that this contagious energy of the divine love and peace and power and joy and creativity and beauty continues to uplift and inspire and awaken all. And I know that creative life is that nexus, that home base that allows this wonderful teaching to spread even deeper throughout the universe. And from that knowing, I absolutely release this expression of joy and gratitude into the law that always says yes. Yes, my beloved, yes. I let go, I let God, and so it is.
So it is. Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it. I trust it. I use it. And I love it. And so it is. All right.